There comes a moment in every human life when the soul whispers a quiet truth, a truth so powerful it can erase years of doubt, a truth so luminous it can ignite a sleeping heart into a burning sun. And that truth is this: you were never meant to live small. You were never designed for mediocrity, conformity, or fear. You were created to rise, to shape, to build, to conquer, to live as if the universe itself moves with you, not against you. Allama Iqbal once wrote, Sitaran se agajahan or behind. Beyond the stars, there are worlds yet to be conquered. But the tragedy is not that these worlds are unreachable. The tragedy is that most people never lift their eyes high enough to see them. Look around you. Most people sleepwalk through life. Their dreams are small because their self-belief is small. Their potential is vast, but their mindset is narrow. They move through each day as if tomorrow is guaranteed, as if their gifts are insignificant, as if time will wait for them. But time does not wait. Destiny does not wait. Greatness does not wait. If you want your life to change, if you want to shatter the invisible walls holding you back, there is only one path forward: rise beyond your limits. Not tomorrow, not when circumstances improve, not when people finally understand your vision. Now. Right now. This moment, because this moment is the point where your life bends, either toward your fears or toward your purpose. And you must choose. Iqbal believed deeply that a human being becomes unstoppable the moment they awaken their inner Qudi, that sacred force inside you, that divine spark, that internal roar that says, I am not here to live weakly. I am not here to shrink. I am here to rise. But how many people ever hear that roar? How many silence it with excuses? I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. I'm not ready yet. These are not limitations. These are lies. Lies shaped by fear. Lies disguised as logic. Lies passed down from people who settled for less and now expect you to do the same. Rise anyway. Rise despite the noise. Rise despite the doubt. Rise despite the uncertainty. Because uncertainty is not the enemy. It is the birthplace of greatness. Think about it. Every hero you admire once stood in the exact place you stand today. On the edge of what they knew. And the beginning of what they could become. Edison failed thousands of times before lighting the world. Lincoln lost repeatedly before leading a nation. Disney faced rejection after rejection before creating magic. Iqbal himself wrote through nights of solitude, struggle, and silence. But he kept writing, kept believing, kept rising. Because his vision was larger than his circumstances. Greatness is not granted, greatness is earned. In quiet hours of discipline, in unseen sacrifices, in the decision to keep going when the world says stop. If you want to rise beyond your limits, you must first understand the truth Iqbal lived by. Your limits are illusions created by your mind. Your fear of failure is not real. Your belief that you are not enough is not real. Your doubt about your destiny is not real. What is real is the power inside you. What is real is the potential waiting to be awakened. What is real is the courage you haven't used yet. Iqbal believed your destiny is not written for you. It is written by you. Every choice you make, every thought you repeat, every action you take, is a stroke on the canvas of your future. So choose wisely, think boldly, act fearlessly, because you are crafting the story your grandchildren will tell. You want clarity? Begin to rise. You want confidence? Begin to rise. You want purpose? Begin to rise. Clarity does not come before movement. It comes from movement. Courage does not appear before action. It appears because of action. And once you begin to rise, even a little, your life will begin to shift. Your energy will change. Your decisions will sharpen. Your vision will expand. Your spirit will strengthen. You will begin to feel something powerful inside you. Something ancient, divine, unstoppable. The same force that Iqbal spoke of. The same force that built civilizations. The same force that takes an ordinary human being and transforms them into a legend. This is your moment. This is your awakening. This is the first step toward your higher self. Rise. Beyond hesitation. Beyond fear. Beyond everything small inside you. Rise. Because you were not created to crawl. You were created to soar. But before you rise, you must confront the very thing that has kept you small, your own self-doubt. Because every human being walks with two voices inside them, one that whispers possibility, and one that murmurs fear. Iqbal called this the battle of Qudi, the self that is awake, determined, and rising, versus the self that is timid, silent, and asleep. And if you want to rise beyond your limits, then understand this truth: the world will not stop you. People will not stop you. Circumstances will not stop you. Only one thing can stop you. The voice inside that says you cannot. And that voice is a liar. Every dream that ever became real began with defiance. Someone, somewhere, dared to challenge the limits that were handed to them. A young Iqbal challenged the idea that fate controls man. He declared, "Tu Shaheen Hai, Perwez Hai Kam Tara. You are the eagle, your nature is flight. You were not built to crawl among the timid, nor shaped to bend under the weight of other people's expectations. But flight requires faith, and faith is not a soft emotion, it is a discipline. It is the art of standing tall in moments that try to bend you. It is the decision to act even when your hands shake. It is the courage to say, I was not born to live in repetition. I was born to create, to conquer, to rise." Look at every great revolution of the human spirit, not political revolutions, but personal ones. They began when someone reached a moment of collision with their fears, collision with their laziness, collision with the life they were pretending to accept, and then they said, no, no more shrinking, no more waiting, no more walking around with brilliance locked inside their ribcage. They began to rise. And their rise didn't start with applause. It started with silence. It didn't begin with clarity. It began with confusion. It didn't begin with perfect confidence. It began with trembling belief, but belief becomes a fire when you feed it. It becomes destiny when you act on it. It becomes a revolution when you refuse to quit. You rise when your purpose becomes louder than your excuses. You rise when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of changing. You rise when you finally understand that the cage was never locked. You were only waiting for permission to leave, but there is no permission coming. Success will not knock on your door. Destiny will not call your name. Greatness will not chase you. You must chase it. This is where discipline enters, not as a punishment, but as a path. The world teaches you to run from discomfort, but Iqbal taught us that discomfort is the birthplace of the eagle. The wind that opposes you is the same wind that allows you to soar. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for confidence. Stop waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time. There is only now, and the person you choose to become inside this moment. Every day you avoid your purpose, you strengthen your weakness. Every day you take one step, even a small one, you strengthen your destiny. Because destiny is not written in the stars. It is written in your habits, in your thoughts, in the choices you repeat. You want to rise beyond your limits, then rise beyond your patterns. Change one thought, change one decision, change one morning, change one belief that has chained you for years. The moment you shift internally, the world begins to shift externally. Because the world is nothing but a reflection of your spirit. Iqbal said, Kudi ko karbulanditna. Raise yourself to such heights, that fate is forced to ask you what destiny you desire. But fate only speaks to the bold. It only answers those who dare to act. So act. Act before fear wakes up. Act before the world suggests otherwise. Act before doubt starts negotiating with your progress. Your life will not change with intention. Your life will only change with movement. Every sunrise is an invitation. Every challenge is a test. Every setback is a training session for strength. And every fear you face becomes fuel. You are not as weak as your worst day. You are not as small as your deepest insecurity. You are not defined by your wounds, your past, or your failures. You are defined by your next step, and your next step is where your rise begins. Even an eagle begins its flight with a fall. Even a mountain begins with a single spark of pressure. Even a hero begins as someone who simply refuses to stay broken. So rise. Rise with intention. Rise with conviction. Rise with the fire of someone who knows they were made for more. And when you rise even a little, the limits that once held you will begin to tremble. Because the moment you challenge a limit, it begins to lose its power. Limits are not walls, they are shadows. They look solid from a distance, but when you walk towards them with courage, you realize they were nothing but illusions built by fear, fed by doubt, and strengthened by hesitation. Stand close enough, and every shadow fades. And this is why most people never rise. They spend their whole life staring at shadows, instead of stepping into the light of action. But not you. You are here because something inside you refuses to die quietly. Something inside you aches for expansion. Something inside you knows, even if you can't explain it, that you were meant for more than the routines you've been repeating. Iqbal spoke of the Shaheen not because it was poetic, but because it represented a higher state of being. A spirit unchained, a mind awakened, a soul that refuses mediocrity. The eagle does not fly to escape the world, it flies to see the world from above. It flies not because the sky accepts it, but because its nature demands elevation. And so does yours. Inside you is a fire that the world has tried to dim, maybe through criticism, maybe through failure, maybe through circumstances that broke you, maybe through comparisons that made you forget your own worth. But no fire truly dies, it only waits for oxygen. Today, these words are that oxygen. This moment is your spark. This decision is your turning point. And turning points rarely feel dramatic. They feel quiet, they feel internal, they feel like a shift, a subtle but powerful whisper that says, enough, I rise now. Let that whisper become a roar. Because rising beyond your limits is not about proving the world wrong, it is about proving your soul right. It is about honoring the greatness you were born with. It is about reclaiming the potential you abandoned to fit into the world's expectations. The world will always try to make you ordinary. It loves comfort. It rewards conformity. It celebrates the predictable. But you were not made for predictable paths. You were made for mountains. You were made for storms. You were made for the kind of destiny that only opens for those who dare to challenge gravity. Gravity exists to test your wings. And every struggle you face, every delay, every disappointment, they are not signs of defeat. They are the weight that builds the muscle of your spirit. Without pressure, coal never becomes diamond. Without resistance, metal never becomes a sword. Without discomfort, the human soul never reaches its true power. So if you are hurting right now, if you are confused, if you are in darkness, do not assume you are falling. You might be transforming. Sometimes, life hides you before it reveals you. It breaks you before it builds you. It slows you down before it launches you forward. This is not punishment, this is preparation. Preparation for the version of you who is bold enough to demand purpose, disciplined enough to stay the course, resilient enough to endure storms, and aware enough to rise above noise. Your rise will come the moment you realize you owe the world nothing, but you owe your purpose everything. Your purpose is not your job. Your purpose is not a title. Your purpose is not validation from others. Purpose is fire. Purpose is clarity. Purpose is the inner knowing that you were designed to take the raw materials of your life, pain, mistakes, fears, dreams, and forge them into something meaningful. And purpose does not reveal itself to the idle. It reveals itself to the seeker, to the disciplined, to the brave, to the one who wakes up and says, even if I don't know how, I will still move. Even if the path is unclear, I will still walk. Even if I feel fear, I will still rise. That is the spirit of Kudi. That is the essence of Iqbal's message. That is the mindset of those who rise beyond their limits. And once you rise internally, the external world cannot remain the same. People will notice the shift. Opportunities will notice the shift. Life itself will notice the shift. Because life does not respond to your words. It responds to your vibration, your discipline, your courage, your standards. Raise your standards, and your life must rise with them. A new self creates a new destiny, and you are becoming that self now. Not with loud declarations, but with quiet certainty. Not with perfect conditions, but with imperfect courage. And that courage is enough to begin. Because every transformation begins with a beginning so small that the world overlooks it. A shift in posture, a moment of clarity, a decision you make in silence, a thought you choose to believe, a standard you refuse to lower anymore. And once that beginning takes root, a new identity begins to form inside you. Not the identity shaped by your past, your failures, your fears, or the labels society tried to place on you, but the identity shaped by your becoming. Iqbal believed that man is not a finished product, he is an unfolding miracle. A force of nature still discovering the depth of his own potential. A traveler on a path that expands the moment he steps onto it. You do not rise because of where you were born. You rise because of what you decide repeatedly. Decision is destiny. And right now, you stand at a doorway many people never walk through, the doorway between who you have been, and who you can become. This doorway demands sacrifice. It demands that you let go of excuses you polished for years. It demands that you silence the voice telling you to wait for a better moment. It demands that you stop negotiating with your dreams. Because dreams die through negotiation. Destiny dies through hesitation. Greatness dies through comfort. And comfort is the silent enemy of your rise. Comfort convinces you to stay where you are, Comfort protects your fears. Comfort feeds your insecurities. Comfort destroys your wings before they ever unfold. Remember this, the eagle does not grow in the nest, it grows in the sky. And the sky belongs to those who choose discomfort over stagnation. Yes, you will feel doubt. Yes, you will feel fear. Yes, you will feel resistance. That is the sign you are on the right path. If your dreams do not scare you a little, they are not big enough to awaken your soul. Iqbal reminded us that the universe bows to intention, but intention without action is the poetry of the unfulfilled. You must turn your intention into motion, your motion into discipline, your discipline into mastery. Mastery of your thoughts, mastery of your emotions, mastery of your habits, mastery of your direction, because the world does not reward desire, it rewards discipline. Desire is easy, discipline is rare, desire is emotional, discipline is spiritual. Desire asks, what do I want? Discipline asks, who must I become? And when you choose discipline over desire, your life begins to shift in ways that feel almost supernatural. You stop waking up with confusion. You wake up with clarity. You stop living in reaction. You start living with intention. You stop allowing the world to pull your strings. You begin pulling your own. You stop being a passenger, and finally become the architect of your destiny. This is rising beyond limits. Not with sudden miracles, but with consistent transformation. Not with external applause, but with internal alignment. Not with guarantees, but with unwavering faith. And faith is not hoping everything will work out. Faith is knowing that even if it doesn't go as planned, you will find a way to rise anyway. Failure, it becomes a teacher. Rejection, it becomes redirection. Pain, it becomes purification. Delay, it becomes development. Everything begins to serve your growth, even the things that once broke you. And that is when you understand something profound. The universe was never against you. It was sculpting you. Sculpting your character. Sculpting your resilience. Sculpting your patience, sculpting your focus, sculpting your hunger, because the version of you that will rise beyond limits cannot resemble the version of you that settled for less. Your destiny requires a stronger you, a clearer you, a braver you, a more intentional you, and slowly, as you rise from within, your outer world begins to shift like a dawn breaking over a long night. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw barriers. You begin to feel strength where you once felt weakness. You begin to breathe purpose where you once breathed uncertainty. You begin to walk with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are aligned with something greater. Not arrogance alignment, not ego awareness, not pride purpose. And that purpose becomes the compass for every decision. It guides your mornings. It shapes your habits. It influences the people you surround yourself with. It filters what you consume. It protects your energy. Because once you start rising, anything that pulls you down becomes unbearable. You stop engaging in meaningless drama. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop giving your power to distractions that drain your spirit. You rise above noise. You rise above doubt. You rise above your old self. And when you rise internally, your environment begins to realign. Because the universe responds to transformation, not hesitation. This is the path of the awakened, the path of the seeker, the path of the one who refuses to live small. This is your path now. Because once you step onto this path, you cannot go back to who you used to be. Not because you're forced to change, but because growth makes your old life too small for you. The dreams that once intimidated you now feel like invitations. The fears that once controlled you now feel like illusions. The habits that once defined you now feel unworthy of your future. You begin to see with a deeper vision, the kind Iqbal spoke of, the vision of a soul awakened to its own possibility. And when vision awakens, life becomes different. Suddenly, your goals are not wishes. They are responsibilities. They are promises made to your future self. They are sacred commitments to the greatness within you. And commitments are not broken by inconvenience. They are not shaken by opinions. They are not cancelled by discomfort. Commitment is the bridge between who you are and who you are destined to become. True commitment comes from identity, not motivation. You rise beyond limits when you shift from saying, I want to achieve this, to, this is who I am. When the student becomes the warrior, when the dreamer becomes the doer, when the doubter becomes the believer, when the follower becomes the creator. And that shift, that internal uprising, that redefinition of the self, That is the most powerful revolution a person can experience. Because once you change your identity, you change your destiny. A person who sees themselves as weak will never take bold action. A person who sees themselves as average will never demand excellence. A person who sees themselves as powerless will always wait for permission. But a person who finally recognizes their divine potential, their spiritual authority, their inner fire, their God-given ability to rise, build, create, overcome, that person becomes unstoppable. The world cannot crush a soul that has awakened. Circumstances cannot break a mind that is aligned. Obstacles cannot hold back a spirit that knows it was made to soar. Iqbal once wrote, Na tu zamin ke li hai, Na asman ke li, jahan hai tir li, tu nahin jahan ke li. You are not for the earth nor for the sky. This world is for you, you are not for this world. These words were not poetry, they were prophecy. A reminder that you were not created to be confined by the opinions of society, the expectations of others, or the fears within your own mind. You were created with infinite capacity, but that capacity reveals itself only through action. Not loud action, not dramatic action, consistent action, the kind of action that reshapes your habits, the kind of action that sharpens your discipline, the kind of action that builds an inner world, so powerful, that no external storm can shake it. And the more you act, the more your limits begin to dissolve. The more you step forward, the more your doubts begin to step back. The more you hold your vision, the more the universe rearranges itself to meet you halfway. This is not magic, this is alignment. This is the law of the courageous. This is the destiny of those who refuse to betray their potential. You were not born to repeat the same day for decades. You were not born to dim your light so others feel comfortable. You were not born to fear judgment from people who fear their own potential. You were not born to live in mental cages built by culture, tradition, or insecurity. You were born to expand. You were born to rise. You were born to create impact. You were born to leave a mark, deeper than your fears, and larger than your doubts. And that rise begins inside your mind, because every limit in your life began first as a limit in your thinking. The moment you upgrade your thinking, you upgrade your entire life. You stop blaming the world, you start creating your own. You stop hoping for change, you become the change. You stop seeking validation, you build unshakable self-respect. You stop waiting for signs, you become the sign. You begin to understand that rising beyond limits is not an event, it is a lifestyle, a mindset, a daily commitment to becoming the strongest version of yourself, even when you feel tired, even when you feel lost, even when you feel alone. Because the truth is, all of us walk the path of greatness alone at first. No one sees the early mornings, no one sees the late nights, no one sees the conversations you have with yourself, no one sees the battles you fight in silence. No one sees the discipline you build in private, but you see it, you feel it, you know it, and in the end, your discipline becomes your confidence. Your confidence becomes your strength becomes your momentum becomes your rise, and your rise becomes inevitable. Even your old limits will bow to the person you are becoming. Because the truth is this, limits are real only for those who accept them. The moment you refuse to accept a limit, the universe begins to rearrange itself around your new decision. Every step you take forward creates a crack in the walls that once confined you. Every new habit you build breaks another layer of the old identity that kept you small. Every moment you choose courage over comfort expands the size of your spirit, and soon, the life that once felt heavy starts to feel lighter. The path that once felt impossible begins to open. The goals that once felt unreachable come within your grasp. This is not coincidence. This is evolution. This is the awakening of Khudi, that deeper, stronger self, that Iqbal dedicated his entire life to awakening in humanity. Khudi is not arrogance, and it is not ego. Khudi is divine alignment. It is when you recognize that your potential did not come from society, from education, from wealth, or from circumstance. It came from God, and anything that comes from God cannot be ordinary, cannot be small, cannot be limited. When you understand this, your limits start to look like illusions, created by a world that has forgotten its own greatness. Look around you. Most people are not suffering from lack of talent, they are suffering from lack of belief, not lack of intelligence, lack of focus, not lack of opportunity, lack of courage. People are not held back by the walls around them, they're held back by the walls inside them. And the greatest tragedy of life is not the failure to reach your dreams, it is the failure to even try. But you are not here to repeat that tragedy. You are here to rewrite your story, to redesign your identity, to rise in such a way that even your past looks at you in awe. Iqbal said, Sitaran se agajahan or behind. Beyond the stars, there are more worlds. Meaning, where you are now is only the beginning. No matter how high you rise, there is always more within you. More strength, more brilliance, more potential, more worlds waiting to be discovered. And the person who understands this stops competing with others and begins competing only with their previous self. You no longer ask, am I better than them? You ask, am I better than yesterday? Am I aligned with my purpose? Am I honoring my potential? Am I becoming who I am capable of becoming? This is the mindset that creates legends. This is the mindset that breaks generational cycles. This is the mindset that turns ordinary men into forces of nature. And when you live this way, your life begins to move differently. You start choosing growth over distraction. You start choosing discipline over ease. You start choosing clarity over chaos. You start choosing purpose over pleasure. You begin to feel hunger, not the physical kind, but the spiritual hunger, for progress, for impact, for truth, for greatness. Your energy becomes different, your presence becomes stronger, your decisions become sharper, your intentions become purer, and people can feel it. They may not understand it, but they can feel it, because a person connected with their purpose radiates a force that cannot be ignored. Some will be inspired by you, some will be intimidated by you, some will distance themselves from you, some will try to pull you back down, but that is the price of evolution. When you rise, you naturally rise away from those who choose to stay the same. This is not loneliness. This is elevation, because destiny does not unfold in crowded rooms. Destiny unfolds in solitude, in deep reflection, in disciplined action, and in quiet revolutions inside the mind. And as these internal revolutions take place, your life begins to take a new shape, a shape carved by purpose, polished by discipline, and fueled by relentless belief. You realize you no longer want to live a life of reaction. You want to live a life of intention. You no longer want to be controlled by external forces. You want to become the force. You no longer want to be a spectator in your own life story. You want to be the author. And with every decision aligned with your purpose, you become that author. You begin rewriting chapters that were once filled with self-doubt. You begin turning pages that once felt stuck. You begin creating a future that once felt beyond your reach. This is rising beyond limits. Not a moment, not a miracle, but a continuous becoming. A becoming so powerful that even your fears begin to lose their voice. And when fear loses its voice, your destiny finally finds its volume. And yet, even as the world tries to pull you toward its noise, something inside you still whispers. A call, a reminder, a flame, a voice that says, you were not built for smallness. Every era has its sleepers, people living but not awakened. And every era has its eagles, those who rise, not because the wind favored them, but because they dared to open their wings when everyone else stayed on the ground. Iqbal believed deeply in this. Bukab ki fiza or high, baz ki fiza or. The eagle's sky is different from the hawk's. Not because the eagle was handed a taller sky, but because it claimed it. You are not here to repeat the life you've already lived. You are here to expand it, to stretch the edges of what feels possible, to step into a horizon you've never seen with eyes wide open, unafraid of its vastness. Think of every great figure who began at the edge of uncertainty. Lincoln, a farm boy who tasted failure more than bread. Carnegie, a poor immigrant boy who started with nothing but a hunger for learning. Edison, whose teachers called him slow, yet he lit the world by refusing to believe them. Ford, who built failure after failure until the assembly line changed history. Walt Disney, fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination, yet he reshaped global imagination itself. What separated them from the millions who lived and died quietly? It wasn't luck, it wasn't genius, it wasn't privilege, it was inner permission. They gave themselves permission to rise. They decided that their life would not be governed by circumstance, but by conviction. And conviction is not loud, it is not dramatic, it does not announce itself with fireworks. It is quiet, steady, Like a heartbeat, it whispers, keep walking, keep shaping, keep becoming, because the world does not bend for wishes, but it does bend for the one who refuses to break. And this is where most people get lost. They wait. They wait for clarity. They wait for confidence. They wait for motivation. They wait for the right time. But the right time never comes. Because the universe does not honor hesitation. It honors movement. You were not designed to wait for life to start. You were designed to start life, right now, right where you stand, with whatever you have. When Iqbal spoke of Kuti, he wasn't talking about ego. He wasn't talking about pride. He was talking about that rare inner electricity that wakes you up to your own potential. That force that says, you are both the sculptor and the stone. You are both the seeker and the path. You are both the question and the answer. But potential means nothing without discipline. Purpose means nothing without daily fire. Dreams mean nothing without devotion. Every great destiny requires a price. And the price is paid in hours no one sees, effort no one praises, and sacrifices no one applauds. Success is not built on moments of inspiration. It is built on years of consistency. But consistency is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about facing days when you feel drained, uninspired, unsure, and showing up anyway. When a storm hits, ordinary birds hide, but the eagle does something extraordinary. It does not flee from the storm, it rises above it, because the wind that terrifies other birds is the wind that lifts the eagle higher. You, too, have storms that visit your life: fear, self-doubt, failure, uncertainty, heartbreak, exhaustion. And you have two choices: hide from them, or rise above them. And rising is not always graceful. Rising is messy. Rising is confusing. Rising is painful. But rising is the only path that transforms you. Every time you rise from difficulty, you upgrade the architecture of your soul. Every time you stand back up, a deeper version of you awakens. Every struggle you survive becomes the steel of your character. The world does not need more people who play small. The world needs more people who have woken up. People who carry fire. People who refuse to be average. People who understand that life is not happening to them. Life is happening for them. And this is where vision becomes your compass. Vision is not a picture of what you want someday. It is a picture of who you must become today. It is a declaration that your life is not an accident, not a reaction, not a repetition, but a creation. A sculptor does not wait for the marble to shape itself. He chisels. He carves. He chips away everything that isn't the final form. In the same way, you must chip away every habit that slows you down, every belief that cages you, every excuse that weakens you, every fear that blinds you. Because no matter how overwhelming your mountain seems, you climb it the same way. One deliberate, unshakable step at a time. And with each step, you discover something extraordinary. The mountain was never the challenge. It was the belief that you couldn't climb it. But now, you are no longer who you were when you began. You are becoming the kind of person who rises beyond limits, beyond fears, beyond the gravity of the world, and somewhere along this climb, something begins to shift, not in the world, not in your environment, but inside you. A quiet certainty starts taking root, a recognition that the limits you once bowed to were nothing more than shadows cast by doubt. You realize that fear was only powerful because you fed it, that hesitation only lived because you sheltered it, that your old identity, fragile, uncertain, unsure, was never the truth about you, only the version of you that forgot its wings. This is where your life begins to change, not with noise, but with a silent, inner revolution. A revolution of identity. A revolution of belief. A revolution of self-respect. Iqbal called it pivastage, the unbroken chain between effort, faith, and destiny. The world changes for the one who refuses to break that chain. The one who shows up when tired, learns when confused, moves when scared, and believes even when the path is invisible. Because belief is not passive, belief is active, belief is a warrior, belief is the foundation upon which entire empires of success are built. Look at any great life story. It always begins with a person who dared to believe when logic said impossible, when circumstances said give up, when society said stay in your place. Harriet Tubman carried belief through the darkness of the Underground Railroad, guiding hundreds to freedom with nothing but courage in her heart, and fire in her spirit. Martin Luther King Jr. lifted belief so high, that it became a dream shared by millions. J.K. Rowling wrote through poverty, rejection, and despair, until her stories reshaped global childhood. Steve Jobs believed so fiercely in what others could not see, that he transformed not just technology, but culture. Real belief, is not a wish, it is a decision. But belief alone is not enough, it must be paired with clarity. Clarity is the light that cuts through the fog of confusion. Clarity is the compass that keeps you from drifting into the regrets that swallow so many lives. Clarity is the difference between movement and momentum, between running in circles and rising in a straight line. You do not need clarity about the entire future, you only need clarity about the next step, because the next step, taken with conviction, reveals the step after that, and the next, until one day, you look up, and see that the path beneath your feet was building itself as you walked. This is how destiny works. It doesn't reveal itself to those who stand still, it reveals itself to those who move. And as clarity builds, vision sharpens. Vision becomes not just an idea, but a force, a gravitational pull drawing you toward a higher version of yourself. This is why Iqbal wrote, Sitaran se agajahan or behind. There are worlds beyond the stars, but you only discover them when you stop limiting your life to the small room of your doubts. The world you want is waiting for the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be, not the person shaped by mistakes or failures or past wounds, but the person forged through discipline, refined through resilience, strengthened through struggle, and awakened through intention. The power of discipline is deeper than routine. Discipline is self-respect in action. It is the daily declaration that your future matters, more than your comfort, more than your excuses, more than the temporary satisfaction of doing what's easy. Greatness is never built in comfort, it is built in repetition. In early mornings when the world still sleeps, in late nights when the world has given up, in the quiet hours when no one applauds, but you keep going anyway. Carnegie used to read by candlelight after 14-hour shifts. Edison worked on his inventions through the night, napping on his workbench instead of going home. Lincoln studied law from borrowed books by firelight. Iqbal wrote verses in the stillness of dawn, when the world was silent enough for the soul to speak clearly. Your discipline does not need to be dramatic, it only needs to be consistent, because small disciplines compound into unstoppable momentum, and momentum is the engine of transformation. But every path, no matter how powerful, is tested. Life will stretch you, life will challenge you, life will ask you to prove your hunger for the destiny you claim. In those moments, resilience becomes your shield. Resilience is not avoiding pain, it is absorbing it, and using it as fuel. Every setback strengthens you, every heartbreak humbles you, every failure instructs you, every rejection shapes you, every disappointment deepens you. You become unshakable, not by avoiding storms, but by learning to walk through them. Resilience transforms wounds into wisdom, it turns breakdowns into breakthroughs, it turns pain into purpose. And purpose is the fire that keeps you alive, even in the darkest nights. Purpose is not a career, purpose is not a title, purpose is not something you find, it is something you build, through the choices you make, and the values you refuse to abandon. Purpose is your why, and your why is stronger than any obstacle. When your purpose becomes clear, your path becomes sacred, your struggles become meaningful, your actions become intentional, your life becomes a message. And that message is the beginning of your rise beyond limits. There comes a moment in every seeker's life, when the world goes quiet, when distractions fade, noise dissolves, and you are left standing face to face with your own reflection. Not the reflection in a mirror, but the reflection inside your soul. That is the moment where destiny begins. Not when you make a plan, not when you set a goal, not when you get motivated, but when you confront the truth about who you are, and who you refuse to remain. Iqbal called it Kuti, the awakening of the self, the birth of inner sovereignty, the moment a human being realizes that the universe does not change until the individual changes from within. And once this realization awakens, you can never return to who you were. You can pretend, you can delay, you can distract yourself, but you can't unsee the truth, that you were built for something greater than the life you've been settling for. This truth is uncomfortable, because it demands more from you. It asks you to rise when you would rather rest. It asks you to break habits that have been holding you for years. It asks you to confront fears you have avoided all your life. It asks you to walk away from people, patterns, and places that keep you small, but this discomfort is sacred. It means the old version of you is losing its power. It means you are outgrowing the limits you once believed were permanent. It means you are stepping into the life you were meant to live. Transformation is not a switch, it is a series of choices. Some small, some painful, all necessary. Every day you make these choices. Will you rise with intention, or drift with habit? Will you feed your future, or indulge your doubts? Will you believe your vision, or surrender to your fears? Remember this, your life is not shaped by the world, your life is shaped by the choices you repeat. Repeat discipline, and you will build strength. Repeat excuses, and you will build regret. Repeat courage, and you will build destiny. Repeat fear, and you will build a cage. You rise beyond your limits, not in a single heroic moment, but through thousands of quiet victories that no one sees. The early wake ups, the focused hours, the sacrifices, the inner battles, the relentless effort. This is why Iqbal insisted that a person with awakened Kuti becomes stronger than circumstances. Such a person does not wait for inspiration, they create it. They do not seek permission, they grant it to themselves. They do not fear the future, they shape it with their own hands. Think of the eagle, Iqbal's symbol of fearless ambition, the bird that refuses to live on the ground, because it wasn't born for mediocrity. The eagle does not flap in panic, it glides with confidence. It rides the winds others run from. It flies highest in storms, because storms reveal its strength. That is what your soul is capable of, not timid living, not cautious dreaming, not settling for comfort, but rising into storms, with a heart that refuses to break. Life will test your purpose. It will place mountains before you, to see if your courage is real. It will send failures, to see if your commitment is shallow. It will give you moments of doubt, to see if your belief is borrowed, or self-made. But these tests are not punishments, they are invitations. Invitations to grow beyond the edges of your current identity. Every struggle is a doorway. Every setback is a signal. Every delay is preparation. Every challenge is shaping you into someone powerful enough to carry the destiny you've asked for. And this is why gratitude matters. Not the shallow gratitude, plastered on posters and quotes, but the deep, soul-level gratitude that recognizes the hidden value in every single experience. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is possible. It frees your mind, it expands your vision, it humbles your ego, and strengthens your spirit. When you are grateful, nothing is wasted, not pain, not failure, not heartbreak, not struggle. It all becomes fuel. And as gratitude expands your heart, adaptability sharpens your mind. To rise beyond your limits, you must learn the art of adjustment, the ability to bend without breaking, to shift without losing your center, to evolve without losing your essence. The world is changing every second. Only those who adapt continue to rise. Only those who stay flexible stay powerful. Only those who embrace the unknown discover their true strength. And through all of this, discipline, belief, gratitude, resilience, adaptation, something extraordinary begins to take shape. Your new identity, not the identity built by society or shaped by your past, but the one sculpted by your choices, your vision, your purpose, your inner fire. You are no longer who you were, you are becoming who you were meant to be. And as this new identity solidifies, you begin to realize a profound truth: limits exist only as long as you honor them. Every fear you once believed, every doubt you once carried, every restriction you accepted from the world or from yourself, they start to crumble the moment you refuse to feed them. Rise enough times, act enough times, believe enough times, and the walls around you dissolve. What once seemed impossible now becomes inevitable. The voice that once whispered you cannot, now trembles before the roar of your Kuti. Because an awakened self cannot be denied. It cannot be caged. It cannot be silenced. You begin to see life differently. Setbacks are no longer disasters, they are teachers. Delays are no longer punishment, they are preparation. Criticism is no longer attack, it is guidance. Failure is no longer shame, it is feedback. Every challenge becomes fuel. Every struggle becomes a stepping stone. Every storm becomes the wind beneath your wings. And in this place, you finally understand why Iqbal spoke of the Shaheen, the eagle that soars above the clouds, that rides the storms, that never settles for the mundane. The Shaheen does not rise to impress others, it rises because its nature demands it. Its rise is not conditional on comfort, it is inevitable, because it knows its purpose. You, too, are a Shaheen. Your spirit is meant for heights. Your potential is meant for expansion. Your life is meant for impact. And now, you understand, rising beyond limits is not a one-time act, it is a daily ritual. It is a way of thinking, a way of feeling, a way of acting. It is the alignment of your mind, body, and spirit toward your highest vision. It is the unwavering refusal to settle for less than what you were born to achieve. It is the courage to step forward even when the path is unclear. It is the patience to continue even when progress seems invisible. It is the belief that the universe responds to clarity, persistence, and purpose. You are no longer a victim of circumstances. You are the architect of your destiny. Every thought you choose, every action you take, every habit you repeat, is shaping the life you will live tomorrow. And as your life begins to reflect your inner ascent, you feel something extraordinary: freedom. Freedom from doubt, freedom from limitation, freedom from the expectations of those who cannot see your vision. You are no longer bound by what others think. You are no longer trapped by fear. You are no longer defined by past failures. You are defined by the relentless pursuit of your potential. And this pursuit does not end. It is eternal. Because the higher you rise, the more you discover that the sky itself has no limits. There are always new peaks, new challenges, new heights to reach. Your potential is infinite, and your rise is limitless. So rise. Rise with intention. Rise with discipline. Rise with courage. Rise with gratitude. Rise with resilience. Rise beyond the shadows of your doubts, beyond the gravity of your fears, beyond the boundaries you once believed were real. Rise beyond the limits of yesterday, beyond the expectations of others, beyond the version of yourself you thought was your best. Rise, not because it will be easy, but because it is your nature to rise. Rise, not because the world demands it, but because your soul will not be denied. Rise, because the fire inside you cannot be extinguished. Rise, because your destiny is waiting, and it bends only to those who refuse to remain small. This is your life. This is your power. This is your rise. And from this moment, the limits that once bound you exist only in memory. Because you have become unstoppable. You have become the Shaheen of your own destiny. You have become the architect of your greatness. You have risen. Your rise is now inevitable.